Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
More news.
Wow. What a day, guys. What a day. This must be the greatest crop of coaching candidates in the history of the NFL because people are just lopping off their head coaches left and right. And today's is old Pistol Pete up from old Seattle. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm just going to keep running the ball. I'm never going to let Russ cook. So, wow.
One playoff win in 7 years.
Yeah.
He did a lot. I would say it's a long runway for an older guy like him.
He's a Hall of Fame head coach, in my opinion.
Right.
I think he will go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't look his age, doesn't seemingly act his age.
Energy is through the roof.
But I think they gave him some kind of soft landing job. So
they fired. There's kind of like conflicting reports here. He is fired as the head coach.
Yes,
but they have offered him a advisory role to stay with the Seahawks because he's a legend.
So we're like, will he want to coach again? I don't know.
See, like that's a question I think everyone's
waiting for. He might be one of
for.
those guys. Like he feels like he'll die if he doesn't coach. He might be one of those people. So maybe he wants to, but then who's in the market for the 70-plus-year-old coach who hasn't won a lot lately? At least Belichick could be like, I got 6 Super Bowls, guys.
It's like one of my parents' favorite movies. What's the movie where all the old guys go to space?
Cocoon?
No. It's
Space Cowboys?
Yes,
that's
one.
what I called the staff that Joe Gibbs brought back. Joe Gibbs and the
funny.
Space Cowboys.
So what if Belichick and
Carroll? He had Don Bro, Joe Bugle, and like all the oldies.
Who's the special teams coach?
I don't remember. But it was all. He even had Bubba Tyer come back.
Yeah, Bubba Tyer was there.
Total full Space Cowboys is what he did.
Belichick, Carroll on the same staff. They joined forces, go full Space Cowboys.
That would be interesting. They should.
And that way they both know exactly what they bring to, a staff. Who's the third guy, though? There's got to be a third guy, obviously.
A third guy coaching with them?
Well, because Pete will...
Coach K?
Pete will handle the offense.
Yeah. Not well.
Right. Belichick will handle the defense well.
You'll have noticed that Seattle's offense hasn't been very good for a while.
Right.
You'll notice that.
We need a third guy. And then it's full Space Cowboys. And then how much does that staff cost?
It would be good. Who are they going to get?
Who's an old guy we're not thinking of?
Who's the old guy?
Bill Cowher.
Bill Parcells.
Bill Parcells. Cowher finally goes back.
Oh, man. So he's out. And this reads to me 2 things, actually, because they waited a few days. One, they know who they want. I don't actually think they do it unless they know who they want. Like, the Vrabel hiring reads to me like Vrabel was making a lot of noise.
Firing, yeah.
And they fired him because they didn't like what he was saying, even though he's probably right.
Right.
I think in the end, what you're going to see is they made a mistake and they're refusing to listen to the guy who should have been heard a little bit more.
Right, correct.
Doesn't mean you make him the GM or anything, but his roster was getting worse. He was complaining about it. They were making bad deals.
Yeah.
And guess what? The team wasn't winning very much. And then the owner says, well, that's not our standard. And he goes, I can't win without talent, guys.
Correct. And he's also
you're not listening to me.
He's also going, look how hard they're playing for me. Like, I'm beating legitimate opponents at home this year.
Like
with Will Levis and Tannehill. Like,
we're not double-digit underdogs, guys. You want to know why?
Yeah, right.
Me.
Yeah, right.
Me. I get these guys to play. There's a standard of excellence here. But in the NFL, if you don't have players, you can't win.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't matter how hard we play. You can't win. You're not listening to me.
Exactly.
Carroll, I think, it could go either way. They probably weren't dissatisfied with him. Everybody likes him. They're not winning a lot anymore. They didn't make the playoffs, albeit.
Same thing, though. They play hard for him. Like
they do.
They don't get killed by anybody,
no,
really.
they don't.
I mean,
no, they don't. They play hard. They are pretty good. Their roster is average, getting better, actually. Getting better. Schneider's finally, I think it took a couple years there. Like, from the Super Bowl teams, Legion of Boom, Russ, Marshawn, all that. Yeah. They're paying guys. They drafted, obviously, really well with those Legion of Boom guys. And they did really well, for that period of time. And then after that kind of fell apart, the defense fell apart first. They didn't draft as well for a while. That's turned in recent years, actually. Like, their secondary is building up to be really good again. Their linebackers are getting better. They have holes like anybody, but like they're They're like a team that I could see calling us for John Allen and going, let's see if we could turn this up a notch, next year. And they obviously don't have a high caliber quarterback. They have good quarterbacks, not great quarterbacks, and you know how that is. They also have a very good receiving core now, all of a sudden.
What I will say, though, too, is like to the quarterback
good
point.
Running backs, too.
Good running backs as well.
Yeah, they've drafted well. Like, they're kind of on the cusp of being pretty good again if they can get the right quarterback in there.
I would call them, too, like the anti-Eagles right at this point, right? Like, A.J. Brown bitches and complains every drive about not getting the ball. And then there's that team that, like, they kind of know they're the land of misfit toys, but you see Geno and Locke are, like, friendly with each other, and they always say the right things.
DK doesn't go crazy about not being the leading receiver in the NFL, and he's got the talent to do that.
Correct. And I think you're just seeing it more and more in today's NFL. Like, guys get frustrated more and more, and I think it's just how competitive the game is.
Yeah.
You never really see it with the Seahawks in that way. Like, he always somehow channels
Pete keeps it together.
He keeps it
together.
He channels it to the field is what I'm saying.
Good vibes, good karma, a little bit of Phil Jackson. Let's all get along here. It's a little bit of that.
But I'm saying, too, it's his energy, too. He's always rah-rahing the guys and running up and down the sideline. Like, you actually don't see that much in the NFL anymore like that.
This one reads to me like they know who they're getting. So I bet Dan Quinn's the next head coach of the Seahawks, and I bet that happens as soon as it's possible for it to happen.
Yeah.
John Schneider's not out. You'll notice that. Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator of Legion of Boom. Dan Quinn went from that to Atlanta and had a very good run. Got to a Super Bowl with Atlanta, had a very good run with them, and then it went the wrong way. And then he's had a revitalization as the DC in Dallas. They have been the most successful defense over the period of time, over like 3 years, and I'm not exaggerating. Like their numbers, metrics are best defense over that period of time in a lot of ways. Turnovers, sacks, quarterback pressures, blowouts. Like they've had all of that with that defense. So maybe they won't rank metrically like number one as yards against or points against or something like that. But in all of the situational stuff that changes games, they are. Like I'm getting ready to do the Cowboys games the metrics that they put out with what they've done in his period as the DC is astronomical. Now, I will, I think he's a very good coach, obviously. Everyone says he's a great motivator, and everyone really likes him a lot. But, they've also, I hate giving Dallas credit for this because everybody wants to think like that they don't know what they're doing down there. They do. Go look at their talent on their team.
Yeah.
Like they have guys that can turn. This is why I thought they'd win the division when the season started. They have tilt plays in them every game. So when Dak's on, they're going to be almost impossible to beat. And when Dak's off, it's possible that they're getting a defensive touchdown in every game or 5 sacks, or they're getting these situational plays that take you out of field goal range because on any given play, they've got 5 guys on the field that can flip a game.
Right.
And that's rare, actually. Like Micah's crazy good. DeMarcus Lawrence is really good. The rest of their defensive line is good enough. Not great against the run, but good enough. And they have 3 corners on their team that are a pick 6 waiting to happen. One of them was hurt the whole year, and it didn't bother them. Mm-hmm. And their safeties have ended up being very good. And I think partially because their D-line and Micah get so much pressure that those guys can jump routes.
Yep.
Like, it's a different story. Like, that's what we should have been. That's what we were supposed to be with our defensive line. We were supposed to be getting so much pressure often all the time that our secondary should be jumping routes. The idea when we drafted Forbes was he wasn't covering A.J. Brown down the field. It was, we get so much pressure, this dude's going to jump routes, and then if he catches it, he's gone because he's fast. Mm-hmm. Well, that didn't work out.
Right.
They have that.
To that
they
point,
have
though,
that. But that's, listen, that's also coordinated that way. I think they have great personnel, but they are coordinated well enough for it to actually happen. We have personnel that could have done things like this and didn't.
Yeah. I'll say this, though. I think it's this is also they know they can get Quinn. Like, I don't think they would make
That's why I think they did it. That's why I think he's going to be the head coach there. And that's why now Jerry's on the clock.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't know that it's out of the realm that he just fires McCarthy and names Dan Quinn the head coach to not let him leave.
I don't think he can do that.
Would it shock you?
Dak was in MVP talks this year.
I talked about this yesterday. He said on the record, we'll go game to game on this. They're the 2 seed. They won the division. Dak has had his best season since pre the injury. He took over the offense. They've got a legit shot to get to the Super Bowl. And he's basically saying, if you don't, I will consider all options, probably because he doesn't want to lose this guy. That's what it is.
He
doesn't want to lose him.
If I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm bugging today. Because
he might do that.
Because also, like, no offense to Dan Quinn, like, I think he is a good defensive coordinator. That defense, as you just mentioned, is so effing stacked. They could bring someone else in, and they will probably not miss a beat, is what I'm saying.
Look at the Niners.
Right, exactly.
They've lost their defensive coordinators over and over, and they're still really, really good because they have crazy talent, especially up front. The front seven is ridiculous on that team.
And so what I'm getting at here is if I'm a Cowboys, I'm really bugging today because if he does that, it means they have to bring in another offensive coordinator. You know who's on the market? Kellen Moore, his golden child, that McCarthy bumped out and said, let me do this. And he ended up being better. But Jerry always loves his guy. And I'm just saying, I'm bugging today if I'm a Cowboys fan because that's freaking me out that he could bring him back and all of a sudden Dak is back to being a mediocre quarterback again.
Listen, like, Pete's not a candidate for us. But I will say that, well, I guess they kept him in the advisor role because they probably don't want him interviewing for stuff. Like,
I guess.
More, not even necessarily probably for jobs, but to pick his brain. Like, I think we're meeting with Dan Quinn and this GM from the Cowboys to pick their brain, and I actually think it's the right thing to do. I don't think we have any intention of hiring either one of them, but because we're in this cycle and we can ask for this stuff and they can't say no, I have no issue with us bringing in the Eagles and the Cowboys guys and having a big conversation about what they're doing over there.
Yep.
That's just called good old-fashioned espionage.
That's right.
You're trying to catch these guys.
Yeah.
That's what our job is. We need to they have better rosters than us. They've consistently had better rosters than us. What are they doing? Let's find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not talk to them? We're not hiring their guy.
Right.
Let's find out what it is. Dan Quinn, I think, would be someone we'd consider. I just don't think we're going in that direction. So now, like, all this stuff is happening. Like, the Vrabel thing feels like he just got sideways with the owner and the GM, and that's why they did this. I think they're wrong. Maybe they'll prove to be right. I think they're wrong. I think he's right. I look at their roster and I go, you guys have mismanaged it. You don't have a competitive team anymore. The other teams around you got better.
Yep.
It turns out Stroud can really play. Maybe Richardson can too. You're in trouble. Like, you're in big trouble now. And he's going, guys, I need a team. And they said, we're doing the right things. And he goes, I don't think you are. And I actually think he's right about it. And so he's getting out before it goes bust. He's like, I can only keep us competitive for so long. Like, we won 6 games this year. That's a miracle, guys. With a rookie quarterback, this guy going out, older players, and a roster that's not replacing any of them.
Well, he's also probably pushing back and going, I got you to an AFC championship game with Ryan Tannehill as the quarterback.
I was the 1 seed, guys. I went 13-3 with Ryan Tannehill, and you're sitting there telling me I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. Exactly.
Are you serious?
Right. So that's what I'm saying, too. He's probably like, did you see what I've done with less?
Years, though, I will say that because it's interesting. So, like, Belichick might be available. We're not sure.
Right.
Dan Quinn is highly sought after. Now Vrabel's available. Pete Carroll's suddenly available. I don't think there's going to be a brisk market for him.
In the statement, it says that he's going to remain as an advisor, but like now he can take an interview if he really wants, right? Like, I'm not tripping on that, I think.
Unless they say we'll give you this amount of money to not do that. Right. But like, I don't know why they would prohibit him from doing it other than I wouldn't want him meeting with other teams and talking about what the Seahawks have done. I wouldn't want him doing that. But like, and now you got all these coordinators that everybody's hot for.
Yep.
Like, everybody thinks this Ben Johnson guy is going to be the next Joe Gibbs. Like, everybody thinks he's going to be it. This is the most interesting collection of candidates out there in a very long time. Like, every year there's always some good candidates.
Yeah.
This one is an eclectic, pick what you like. Jim Harbaugh's available. Yeah. Just won the national championship with Michigan. Has been a success as an NFL coach, too. You could get him starting over and young-ish and won everywhere he's been, just won on the highest level with a school that hadn't won a championship in 25 years.
That's right.
You could have Belichick, winningest coach of all time. He could do it. Like, it sounds like if you called Bob Kraft and said, I want to trade for Belichick, sounds like he would do it, right? Sounds like he would do it. You could get one of these young coordinators. That's always a risk because they haven't done it before, but there's a couple of them, like this Ben Johnson guy, that people are like, he's going to be McVay or Shanahan. They think that.
And on the other side, you've the old D tackle, their defensive coordinator,
Glenn.
Yeah, Glenn.
Aaron Glenn.
Right, exactly.
Been around the block a million times, never been a head coach, don't know.
Right.
You could get Raheem Morris, who everybody says should get a second go-around, and has had a great run with the Rams. Like, everyone says he should get a second go-around. Or now suddenly you can get Vrabel, who was coaching a 1 seed with an okay roster as of 2 years ago in a conference with Mahomes and Burrow. He was doing that.
Right, exactly.
I don't know, man. Like, pick, what do you like?
Well, I think
what do you like? I mean, because you could get any of these people now.
I think that's what brought the Titans to get rid of Vrabel. I think it's because it's the pool in general. It's that
I don't think they can do better than him, but all right.
I'll hear their argument, though.
Because I think other people are going to value him and go, really?
But if he's still barking about the roster and they're going, we just need a power reset, too. This is the market to do it because we like 3 of these guys. I think that's what we're seeing right now. Like, I even think with the Seahawks, they're probably going, Quinn wants to come here, but if Jerry does somehow keep him, we like options B, C, and D. I think that's what's happening here. I think it's because the pool of candidates, all of these teams have come around to, if we don't get our number 1 guy, we like the second, third, fourth option.
The second, third, fourth choice is good.
Yeah, I think that everyone's talked themselves into, I like these other guys over who we've got, or I like bringing in someone new out of who we've got.
It could also be like there's all this rumoring about Tomlin taking a year off. Does he want to do that, or is Pittsburgh suddenly going?
Could be doing that too.
You know what? He's been here 20
that'd
years.
be chaos if that happens.
Okay, like the whole time with Belichick, I'm like, why would you get rid of him?
Yeah,
you're going to do better than him, like. But maybe they're looking at this going, it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to go get somebody really good who's a lot younger than him to take over our program if we move on from him. And so what? He goes and coaches another place for what? 2, 3, 5 years. And if he doesn't have a quarterback, is he really going to win big?
Right.
But then if you're Kraft, don't you want him breaking this record as a member of your organization, which is why I think he's going to end up staying, is I think in the end they want that for the purpose of history. That you get to have that for the rest of your life, that he's going to be the winningest coach of all time. And I don't know. I think the talk with him, I would basically say to him, because he's a year or 2 away from it. I think I would say to him that short of we're a Super Bowl contender after you break that record, I want you to retire after you break that record. That's how I would kind of position it with him. And oh, by the way, we're taking personnel control away from you. We're going to hire a GM because it seems like there's a lot of really good candidates for that all of a sudden too. We're going to start that process. You're just going to coach. We're going to get you a quarterback, promise, and win as much as you can. And the second you break that record, we're going to talk about you retiring gracefully unless we're on the cusp, and then we'll consider keeping going.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how I would. If I was Kraft, that's what I would talk to him about. And if he isn't amenable to that, then we'll trade you. That's what I would tell him. We're going to hold you. We're going to hold you up. We're going to trade because there's a lot of good candidates out there, and the cycle may go by. So that's how I would think about it with him. Here are the openings we know of, and I think Pittsburgh and New England are now semi on the clock. The Bears. After talking through this, it almost feels like, why didn't they make the change? You might as well, especially if you are bringing in Caleb Williams.
Right.
And you are starting over. Why wouldn't you do it?
It tells me they're not. I mean, I think that's what they're playing their hand in.
Well, I don't know, because they fired their offensive coordinator today.
Right.
But they didn't fire him.
That's right.
They fired the offensive coordinator, which does say to me that they do plan on having a new offense, and that new offense, to me, is probably based around a different quarterback. Okay. That's what I think.
Okay.
I think they would have kept this guy if they were keeping, yes, were they great? No. But, if they were, I read it as if they were intending to keep Fields, why wouldn't they stick with what they were doing as he was getting better? Well, probably because they aren't bringing in Fields. But this is why I think this head coach should, whether he deserves it or not, probably should be replaced, because the second they get Caleb Williams, it is literally a new era. So you probably need a new voice to be there who doesn't listen to the locker room, who's all ticked off that their guy Justin's not there anymore. Because the new coach is going to be like, I haven't been here, guys. We're starting over. Get on board with me, or we'll have a conversation about what the future looks like. So I actually think this is a misstep of them. If they're going to get an OC and take Caleb Williams, I think whether this guy deserves it or not, probably should have been replaced too. But I think they tried to split the baby here. We're going to get rid of the OC because we're not going to keep Fields, and so the OC will be new. but you kept the coach who's been hearing it for a year that everybody wanted Fields, and he's got to keep everybody together, and they're going to look at him like he turncoated one of their guys. I think that's a mistake.
Could be twofold, though. It could be, remember what happened at the beginning of this year with the Bears where they were trying to make him pocket pass, and you and I were like, guys, didn't you do this last season where you've tried to force this guy to be a normal pocket passer, yet his best asset is running the ball or using his legs to utilize the passing game? Maybe they're bringing in another coordinator that is a more college-ish coach to use Fields in a different way. Because that would finally be buck a trend.
Read to me that this is the primer for them picking a quarterback, but it might not be.
I'm just saying, because we've got 2 years in a row where everyone's going, why are you making Fields do that when he does this version of the offense way better? So,
who are they going to get? Greg Roman?
Maybe. I could see that happening. Or you go after a college guy.
I read it like this is what they're trying to do to grease the wheels to a new quarterback coming in, but maybe not. And obviously, that's the greatest thing on earth for us.
Uh-huh.
If they are sticking with Fields, we get to have the conversation with them.
Correct. Exactly. Yes.
Unless it's already set in stone that we want Drake May no matter what.
Which could be.
If you read all the reporting about what Ben Johnson and his relationship is with this particular player, well, then it just screams like, well, that's the guy I want. And now we don't have to give anything up because he's going to be in our lap no matter what. Whether the Bears take Williams or trade the pick, it's for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So we could just sit here sitting pretty and we don't have to do a thing.
That's right. Or if they
cost us nothing and we get hopefully our franchise quarterback.
Well, it could also be.
It also means Sam won't be here. I promise you that.
Probably, yeah. I mean, the other thing would be, this could also just be like the RG3 situation. Remember when they traded up for RG3? We all assumed it was RG3, but then it became apparent like, oh, well, if the Colts do like him, then we get...
The whole time, I was like, I hope that they fall in love with RG3.
Correct. Right.
Because I want luck.
Right. And so what I'm saying, though, is maybe this could be the organization also going, we love Drake May, but hey, if you want to take him, we'll take Caleb Williams too. Like
we'll take either one.
That could be really how it goes.
No doubt. In fact, I don't know how they feel about the LSU guy. It could be we'd take any of the three.
Sure.
That's a possibility here. Right. We would be happy with any of the three. And we feel like we're going to put in a system that works for anybody. And it'll be tweaked for someone with the talents like Williams has versus the talents of May.
Right.
And then Daniels is a whole different bucket. He kind of feels more like Fields to me a little bit, where there's this crazy high-level athlete that needs to be turned into an NFL quarterback. But if you get it right with him, he's going to be bonkers.
Right. Exactly.
That's what it feels like. May feels like a very traditional quarterback. Caleb feels like could be Mahomes. Might not be. We'll find out in the NFL. Right. He's going to be, when you're running around from Colorado's defense and you're running around from Micah Parsons, it's two different things. So we're going to find out. But if he ends up being the same guy from college, well, you got a Hall of Famer. Right? Like, that's what you got.
Exactly.
Daniels, in the limited amount that I've seen to this point, reads to me more like Fields, where if it clicks, he's going to be an unstoppable weapon who's a runner/passer. If it doesn't, it could be this situation where it takes a while, but you're always going to have this promise because he's a ridiculous athlete. And so you're going to consistently be like, stick with it. He'll get good. So we'll see. And those are the choices. And maybe whoever's coming in here goes, I'll take any of them, and I'll tailor what I'm doing around their talents.
Because it could also be a situation where maybe they're having this conversation with whoever the AGM or whoever the offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators that they're interviewing. It could also be hey, this is what the roster is going to look like. As you've been saying, 26 guys are going to be, turning over. Yeah. You can't keep them all. You also probably don't want to keep them all. They're probably also going, we've got a couple of second-round picks and a third-round pick. If you can work with either one of them, that's an extra starter. That's right. That you're going to get if you hit them.
They're going to draft 3 starters.
Right.
A quarterback.
Right.
And then whatever the other 2 in the top, in the second.
If they don't move up,
they're going to be starters.
Yeah.
Like these people are going to be starters. Like as I've talked about this with the cap room thing, I keep talking about how much cap room they have.
Right.
You need to remember that the reason why they have so much cap room is half of the team isn't under contract. And literally, that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
26 players are not under contract. So they have to fill out a roster. And not all of them are going to be minimum wage guys, which means You've got to get this linebacker. You've got to get a safety. You've got to get all the, maybe you do re-sign Cam Curl. Maybe you don't.
Yep, right.
If you
like
don't,
Quan,
right, okay, so maybe that's the wrong position. Kendall's not under contract. Do you want him back? I guess we'll see with the new coaching staff. If you do, he's $10 million a year. It's not $1 million.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's what he costs to retain him. Well, if you don't, then you have to get a cornerback. He's going to cost $10 million a year or more. Right. So remember, they're filling out a roster. And it's not all going to be big swings at massive free agents. Yeah. They have to pay some money to get starters in here at a lot of different positions. The big swing money might be for a tackle, might be for a defensive end. Who knows? Who knows?
Right, exactly.
So we'll see. All right, I want to go through this coaching thing next and try to project, now that we've seen all these people that are out there, where are they going to go? And who the Commanders really should focus on. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, so the latest NFL coaching news is Pete Carroll is out as the Seahawks head coach after, it's got to be, 10 to 15 years? 14 years, yeah. Wow. Quite a run. I assume that now that he's retired, he's 5 years away from going into the Hall of Fame. I think he probably belongs there. Two-time Super Bowl participant, Super Bowl winner. Obviously, one of the greatest college coaches of all time at USC with the era that he had with the Trojans. So he's out, is staying there for now as an advisor. At his age, he's in his 70s. And considering how many younger, what seems to be highly sought-after qualified candidates are out there, I think he's going to have a hard time finding another spot. I said this about Belichick throughout the fall when all the rumors were he's going somewhere. I don't think there's going to be a brisk, vibrant market for him.
Right.
Partially because there are all of these very hot names that are out there right now that now is joined by people like Mike Vrabel, who I think more people would be willing to talk to as a second go around than Pete Carroll for sure, because he's younger and he's won more recently, frankly, and he's won, with marginal teams.
Sure. Yeah.
So, Pete won, I don't take anything away from him. Pete won with teams that have Hall of Fame players on it.
Sure.
Mike Vrabel won with Ryan Tannehill, and Derrick Henry's going to be a Hall of Famer. But the rest of it is kind of, that's a good team, not a great team that happened to be a 1 seed,
With Pete, I forgot his first year was 2010. That's the year they went 7-9 and won the division. And then the Saints had to go there, and it was the beast mode run.
Oh, right, yes.
That was his first year
Right, the Saints had won the Super Bowl, and they knocked out the Super Bowl champs, and that was the earthquake beast mode
literal,
run.
Yeah, literal. And then 7-9 again, they didn't make the playoffs. But then 2012 rolled around. That's when they got Russ.
They got Russ.
They beat us here in the first playoff game with Russ. And then the following year, they won the Super Bowl. Then they went back to the Super Bowl.
And should have won it, but lost because of a terrible play call.
Yes, exactly, right. So
yes, Malcolm Butler intercepts a pass.
Correct.
They have beast mode on the 1 yard line and don't hand it off to him.
And then they lost
all-time terrible call all-time terrible call.
Terrible call. Then they lost 1, 2, 3 divisional games and 3 wild card berths as well. One of those years they went 9-7, didn't make the playoffs as well. So
right, but even last year, Geno Smith was kind of just let's just try this, and he ended up they went to the playoffs with it.
Lost to the Niners, which no one's going to fault them for.
No, they went to the play. That's an average team. I think that their roster is actually rebuilding the right way, and they do feel like they're kind of budding and building. But like most teams, if you don't have a high-level quarterback, it's a struggle.
Right.
And they don't have one. I think Geno's okay. I think he was a great story last year, kind of turning his career around. I think he deserved the contract he got. I think Drew Lock is no better than him. Frankly, and they're in that middle road. We've been in it forever, where you got a quarterback who's okay, and he's not going to kill you, but he's not good enough. So your team has to be overwhelming. One of two things has to happen. You have to have an overwhelming team with a good enough quarterback that doesn't mess you up and it take you Tennessee.
Yes.
Or you got to have Mahomes or Josh Allen and Lamar, and they overcome whatever shortcomings you have because they're ridiculous.
Well, and you also have young talent that you draft that you need to constantly replace.
Yeah, but when, those guys always look better with those quarterbacks.
Yes. Correct.
I think that's the weird thing about the Chiefs this year. It's the first time he's got a bunch of young talent out there, and none of them are shining with him.
Right.
And it doesn't even make any sense. And watch, would it shock you if Rashee Rice has 1,000 yards in the playoffs? Of
course not.
Because Mahomes turns him into a superstar overnight? It wouldn't shock me. That's in the realm of possibility of happening. All right. So we got Seattle's now open. Washington's open, Raiders open, Chargers open, Falcons open, Carolina open.
Yep.
Bears seem to have not moved on. Pittsburgh, it doesn't seem like is doing it, but there's some rumors now all of a sudden.
Right.
New England, they haven't fired Belichick yet. So I think that's been in the potential, that's been in the ether, but Is it
It's
happened
kind of like
yet?
who else is jumping in the pool. I feel like that's what the next day or two is going to be.
Maybe Kraft is waiting for if he gets whatever specific person he wants and knows it, then he'll make that move. But outside of that, he's not firing Belichick only to find out he's left at the altar by the guys he wants. That could be what's going on there. And Pittsburgh could be the same way. Why would they fire Mike Tomlin? They're in the playoffs right now.
Right.
Like with bad quarterbacking, they're in the playoffs right now. They had no offense for half their season and limited amounts of it later in the season, and they're still in the playoffs. So why would they walk away from him unless he wants a break, which they're kind of posing that way. But that also could be maybe there's a guy they want, and if they can get him, they'll do it.
Right.
And if they can't, why would they move away from him? That could be what's happening here. Like, beware of what you wish for when you get rid of a legendary coach, and then all of a sudden you're not as attractive to these people that you think you are.
I think there's something to be said here. Seahawks, Commanders, Chargers, Raiders, Panthers, Falcons, Titans. Which one of them is going to try to go super team? Like, which one of them is going to get two of these guys? I think we're because there's so many names out there. Or do the Patriots? Does Kraft say to Belichick, "You're head coach, but we're bringing in Vrabel"? Something crazy like that to say. When you're done, he's gonna take over or something like that. Like I just think there's too many names.
I want to talk to Mike Vrabel about being our DC if he doesn't land one of these jobs.
That's what I'm saying.
I'd say just for a year.
Right.
Come on here, get us turned around. Tell us who you want under you that's going to replace you when you become a head coach somewhere else again.
Right. See,
I would do that in a second.
That's what I'm saying.
Like there's only 6 jobs, right?
Yeah, 7.
Seven. What is it? Seahawks, us, Raiders, Chargers, Atlanta, Carolina.
Titans.
Who am I missing?
Titans
now, right?
Yeah.
Titans.
So,
but he's not. So there's 6 he could go to.
Yeah.
I don't think is going to be our head coach.
But that's what I'm getting at. One of these is going to be a super coaching team because one of these guys is going to want a job. So they're going to go, come on over to here. And it's going to be Ben Johnson's the head coach and someone else is the D coordinator. Or Glenn's going to be the head coach and someone else is the offensive coordinator. Like, I think you're going to get one of these franchises, gets 2 of these guys because maybe that's just what it turns
I think
into.
so. Yeah, I think so. Like, if Vrabel somehow strikes out.
Right.
And so, all right, let's project this. All right, Seattle, I think, is getting Dan Quinn.
I agree
I
with
think
that.
they did this today because they know they can get him.
Yep.
They're going to have to go through the process because you can't just hire the guy, but I think they're going to, which leads me to believe it is possible that Jerry might put a stop to that by firing McCarthy and hiring him. He may or may not go along with that. I would too. But like, it's the fact that they had the season they had and Jerry isn't like, obviously he's coming back next year is a little strange.
Sure.
And he went out of his way to make sure Dan didn't leave in the first place, which was last year. But my gut says Seattle knows they're getting him back. He's got a direct tie to a glory era for them. He's ready for a second go around. And actually, they do have a lot of budding defensive talent all of a sudden. So I think there's a good sell for him. So I'm going to guess he goes there. I'm going to guess Harbaugh to either the Chargers or the Raiders. I think if he's smart, he goes Chargers because of Herbert.
Yeah.
But the Raiders could offer him more money and more power.
I think the Raiders have turned into what the old Redskins used to be. I think they're just being leveraged. I don't think he's actually going to go there.
All right, so let's guess Harbaugh to the Chargers, right? Because that feels about right.
I agree with you there. Yep.
Tennessee's a wild card now. I think that they made a mistake, honestly.
Correct. Yes.
And I don't know. They're not going to get one of the top people on this list. So who do the Raiders go after? Do they want Vrabel?
Do they keep Pierce? We still haven't heard. We haven't heard anything out of there.
I saw the Giants, basically the report out of New York is if he doesn't get that job, they want him as the new DC up there.
Okay.
Which
that would make sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, like he got those dudes to play.
Yep.
For those, I just want to say this because Wink Martindale is officially out as the DC in New York. Anybody advocating him to come here? No.
I don't think anyone really was. But
I saw a few people on the internet go, we should go get him.
Oh, no. Stop it.
No. N-O. Did you see how our corners played this year? Right. Do you want them on an island?
Right, exactly.
I don't, because that's what he does. He blitzes people every play.
Yep.
I admire it a little bit.
It's Greg Williams.
Terrible.
It's old school Greg Williams.
I feel terrible for the corners on those teams because if they're not just on it every play, they are going to get toasted at times. Anyway, so no thank you.
Yeah.
But that makes a lot. Antonio Pierce won Super Bowls in New York. That would be perfect. Mm-hmm. And considering how flim-flammy the Maras are these days, if Daboll has a bad year, he might slip into that job.
Yep.
So I actually think if he doesn't get the Raiders job, so I agree. I don't think it's going to be Pierce because I think they would have just hired him.
Well, I think they're going to go through the process. I think they're legitimately going to go through it all. I mean, because I think if you're Mark Davis, how are you not thinking about how you botched it with Bisaccia, right? Like he got them to the playoffs. They were, remember, we talked about it. They were a drive away from beating the Bengals.
Yeah.
The year the Bengals were going to the Super Bowl.
And he was just the interim.
Right.
But they loved him.
Correct.
They played for him.
They had a red zone turnover to end the game, essentially. Like, I mean, that game went to the wire. So I think if you're Mark Davis, how are you not considering it a little bit more?
And then they went and hired a crazy pants.
Yes, correct. So he might just also say, you know what, let's go with the sure thing here. Also, it's worth noting, the Raiders don't have a quarterback either. So he might just say, let's hold on to Pierce for now because we actually don't really know what's going to happen in the future. So I think Pierce could stay there. I think there's a legit shot.
All right, so my gut says we're hiring Ben Johnson. That's what I think is happening. Yeah. I think Adam Peters is going to be named. This is just I'm speculating. I don't know, but I have a pretty good educated speculation. I think this is all about whether Adam Peters wants the job, and that's what I don't know.
Right?
Does he really want it? Right. I mean, I think he does. That's my understanding is, but he has to say yes. Correct. So I don't know.
Yeah.
They're going to go through this process, and they should talk to everybody. Why wouldn't they? They should. But I think he's going to get offered the job. If he takes it, I believe Ben Johnson will be his choice for head coach. And that's why I'm picking him for us. Now, the complicated part is, and not that these guys haven't spent enough money over the last year anyway, but it's going to cost more to get this guy now because there is a brisk market for him.
Right.
So you're going to pay a lot more for a first-time head coach than you're probably accustomed to, but these guys are bleeding money and seem to be okay with it.
Sunk
and
cost.
I appreciate it because it's so funny. They paid $6 billion. They paid a record price for a distressed property, knowing they were going to be paying millions more the second they walked in the door to fix the stadium, to do whatever they need to do with the lobbyists.
Right.
That $90 million in cap space is great for us and interesting for them. They have to pay out Rivera. Uh-huh. They've got to pay. They got to get the FedEx. New head coach and the new GM, and they have to pay them the going rate for both of them. And Johnson's rate just went up because everybody says he's Joe Gibbs.
Right.
So these guys are putting their money where their mouth is.
They're also upgrading their distressed stadium.
Yes.
Like sinking legitimate money into Landover.
They are. Thank God he knows how to raise capital because I can only imagine that in a couple more years, that ownership group is going to be in the 40 to 50 range of people because it's outrageous how much money they had to spend to get it, how much money they have to spend outlay just to make things kind of sort of right, how much money they got to pay to fix the mess that's there, and how much money they got to pay to get the quote-unquote right people in here.
Hey, I just read a sports business piece where they were the number one jump in attendance this year. So use that ticket money, boys.
Low bar. And also like the thank you Josh stuff, you ought to keep saying it because those guys are writing check after check after check, and they haven't said no yet to any of it. And if they get Adam Peters and Ben Johnson, they paid the going rate for them. That wasn't a deal.
Right.
That's my gut. Ben Johnson's our coach here, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
The Raiders are a wild card.
Yep.
They will pay. I wonder if I'm Vrabel, I want Atlanta personally.
Okay.
If I want to do, I assume he wants to coach. Well, I either want New England because it's Kraft and I know him.
Yeah, right.
Or Pittsburgh, which I don't think that doesn't read to me. What they've done always in the past is they take a first-time head coach who's young.
Yep.
That's what they do.
Yep, and they let him mold whatever they want it to be.
Maybe they want Ben Johnson. That's a possibility. Maybe that's what's going on there.
They've always gone defensive, though, haven't they?
Cowher was a special teams coach.
He was special teams. Okay, got it.
Tomlin was special teams, then DC.
DC, yeah.
And then Chuck Noll, I don't remember. Okay. That's from eons ago. But they've
Steelers
had three coaches
Steelers
in 50
have always
years.
been defensive-minded of a franchise. So
Correct.
I'm just,
Vrabel's, I bet you he'd love to go coach them if that was.
I don't think they'd go after him.
I don't think so either.
Glenn screams like he could be the Steelers head coach, though.
Maybe.
Just because that one's.
Who's the 30-year-old defensive coordinator everybody loves? Like this guy from Carolina everybody talks about and says maybe he's the guy. I don't know. Raiders, they will overpay. they might look at Vrabel now.
Sure.
If they don't get Harbaugh, I bet they're going after Harbaugh. If they don't, because it's either the Chargers or the Raiders, in my opinion, for him. If they don't get him, because Harbaugh chooses to go to the place with the better quarterback and the better talent overall, which would make sense, that's an interesting one. Where do they go? I think they overpay probably for one of these coordinators. It's a hot name.
Okay.
If I'm Atlanta, I go hard at Vrabel at this point. I think you look at our roster, they look at their roster and they go, we're not a rebuild. We need a quarterback. We get that.
Right, but they have offensive talent. I mean,
we got a crazy offensive line. Yeah. We got a crazy running back. We got a crazy tight end. We got a crazy wide receiver.
Good wide receiver, yeah.
Like, why shouldn't we be good on offense? We should be. And if this guy comes in here and makes our defense better, and I think their personnel on defense is average, but if they makes it better, he makes them play harder, well, then all of a sudden they should be winning that junky division. So I actually think that's an interesting one.
And he's also probably going to go, give me the list of veteran quarterbacks, the Jacoby Brissetts of the world.
Yeah.
I can insert him and we'll be fine. I could totally say that.
I'll put Vrabel there.
Okay.
That'll be my guess. I'm going to guess him there. Tennessee's a total wild card. I think it's going to be a first-time head coach, and it's going to be one of these coordinators. Frank Smith, Bobby Slowick, somebody like that. That's what I think.
I think you need to throw a 1% to 2% chance that Harbaugh could go there. I think because you fired Vrabel for a reason.
And they also admitted the person who comes in here might have a say.
Yep.
Okay, sure.
And what I'm going to say here, too, is it's the Titans. You're in the South.
Khakis on Broadway. I don't know, guys.
Name of my new band.
It's going to be a weird look.
Khakis on Broadway.
Khakis on Broadway.
Sounds like a good band.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm going to go with Harbaugh there just as a percent chance because I also think they're located in the South. No one has really thought of the Titans as like an amazing franchise by any means. They just happen to be in Nashville. But that'll make some noise for all the college fans around too. That Harbaugh is now their head coach there. And I know he's not an SEC coach, but he just won a national title. I think you have to at least consider him going there. I think he also knows if I go there, I know I can grab the power the second I walk in. He knows if he goes to the Raiders, he's got to probably butter some people up. He's got to make sure Davis isn't going to freak out on him at all. That seems a little more political is what I'm saying. I think he could walk into the Titans and he's all of a sudden the number one guy in that organization.
Here's the bidding war I want. Raiders, Carolina for Dion. That's the bidding war we need.
And everyone goes...
Because either one of them, you'd be like, okay... You imagine Dion coaching the Raiders? The style and fashion.
Ridiculous.
Oh, and if he goes to Carolina,
he's going to tell Tepper to F off to his face.
To his face. As for Tennessee, you got me, man. I think that one.
I think everyone's on the table.
Yeah.
I think the enemy's on the table. Seriously, I think everybody's on the table there.
The enemy, maybe. The Chargers, if the Raiders get Harbaugh, the enemy could be the
Sure.
Chargers. That's a possibility, too. I think that's possible. All right, quick break. Very much to show ESPN 630 Sports Capital. I'm going to do a couple quick things from the NBA. Kawhi Leonard, 3 years, $153 million extension, which is just the going rate for a guy who's barely played, but all of a sudden is back in playing, and the Clippers are good.
They also, I saw this come from a mile away with them, they need to lock a team up for the new arena. So I think this is more like... We kind of got to just lock this team up so when we open up the new place, people want to go out and see them.
You trust he'll be playing 60 games in 3 years from now?
It took me everything not to scream
40
the
games.
Actual F word. No. There's no chance this is going to happen with this guy.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
The grandfather of load management? I don't think so.
He's the grandfather of load management. We'll give the Clippers this, too. They're zooming up the standings, and granted, they've had injuries last few years. Doing it without Winger.
Yep, right. Yep.
It's our guy.
Correct.
No, I'm not. Listen, they had a ready-made team if those guys are good to go. And I heard an interview with him with Woj, actually, when he first came here, and he was like, we feel like we had a potential championship team. He's like, we had the best wing duo in the NBA. If they're healthy, they were never healthy together.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's true.
Right.
If you don't have your guys in the NBA, you lose.
Yes, correct. It did come out, though, too, with Kawhi, that he's got to decline some option, then sign this. Then they already said they're going to approach Paul George to do the same thing. And then I guess there was something where they can't approach Harden until the end of the season or whatever that deal is. So it's already steamrolling. They just want to lock in
to put the ball in his hands, and Harden likes it.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Maybe that's what the secret was the whole time. Let him be the point guard.
I think it's because
because when he doesn't feel like shooting, he just gives it up because he's happy to do so. When he does feel like shooting and he lights it up, you win.
Right, and he also
maybe that's been the solution the whole time. Just let him be the point guard.
Maybe. I mean, he's also though. I think it's just because he plays for the Clippers and it's a West Coast team. He was like
don't care.
Well, but he was pretty loud. Like I want to say about a month
it's a good
ago.
spot for him. He's like in LA, high profile, has a great nightlife, but nobody really cares about them.
Right.
It's perfect.
He came out and was like, how do you all like us now? And it was like the 16th thing buried on First Take because
nobody
was like,
cares.
Right. So it's like
they're like the story. It sucks for a team like that, sorta. It's like the Lakers being good is the story. The Lakers being bad is the story. Right. The Lakers being in the middle is really the story.
Yes, correct.
Yep, the Clippers are way better than them and not close. I got to when I went out to the Rams game. The team took me to a Clippers game, and so I got to see them. They have a team of Hall of Famers running around out there. You'd never know it.
Correct.
I mean, granted, they're all
still on that roster, right?
He comes off the bench.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
Russ comes off the bench. He plays 10 minutes a game.
Yeah, right.
They roll out Kawhi, Paul George, and James Harden in their starting five and bring Russ off the bench, and nobody cares. It's like whatever.
Until they win one, no one cares.
I agree. One other thing was, did you see the Lakers thing last night?
Oh, what was that?
They outscored Toronto 44-42 in the fourth quarter, which now I wish I saw.
Okay.
They had 23 free throws. Toronto had 2.
Did see this, yeah.
Their coach went off and was like, the league shouldn't stand for this, was the way that he put it. He basically insinuating, you guys gave them every bit of help you possibly could to beat us, and they barely did it anyway. Granted, I don't know why the league would root against the Toronto Raptors, but that's what he's kind of insinuating. And it's not like I saw it, but that disparity is a problem.
Well, and
it is.
LeBron's quote after was like, well, they fouled and we didn't. I'm like, sure, pal. You guys just decided
every
not to
possession
foul.
They fouled, and every possession they had, you didn't.
Exactly.
Got it.
Sure.
Sure. All right, let me take a quick. Well, we got the Wizards tonight, right? Pacers? I don't think Halliburton's playing.
He's not. He got hurt the other night. Not seriously, but he got banged
So maybe
up
we'll lose
night.
by 6.
You mean like they did against OKC?
I'll take that these days. All right, we'll be right back. Bram, watch the show. ESPN at 6:30, Sports Capital. All right, let's see. Latest is the Titans have requested to speak to Antonio Pierce, the Raiders interim coach, because the Raiders haven't just named him the head coach. Guess they're probably waiting for old Jim Harbaugh to tell them yes or no. Mike McDonald has also been requested by the Titans. That's not a surprise. And in fact, I was thinking about this now we're talking about the coaching thing. That guy I think is going to get a job too. I wonder where that one's going to be. He's the DC of the Ravens.
Yeah. I could see
that
him.
That could be.
I could see him though as one of those guys that gets all the interviews and then the chairs run out and then he's happy to return there. I mean, one of those guys. Like not everyone.
Someone's
going to
strike out here. Yeah. Someone's going to strike out here.
He could. I mean, he could potentially be the guy that Jerry goes after too, right?
If Dan leaves, Dan Quinn leaves,
you can offer him more money.
The other one too is
deny that. Remember
the other one
the
too.
Ravens could deny the interview. So
honestly, I think we need to watch what's going on in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, we haven't even thought about that yet.
Because if they lose to Tampa this weekend, which feels like it's possible because of the way that they're playing,
Still
of course, right? But I mean, let's just say they play the way they've played the last month and they lose 31-8. And people are like, you lost 31-8 to Baker Mayfield. Like you're like, really? And then, and oh, by the way, Jason Kelsey's probably retiring and Lane Johnson might be retiring. And then everybody finds out what's really wrong there.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Fletcher Cox is out. Brandon Graham is out. Like the old schoolies are gone.
By the way, I just had to ask you about this because I didn't see a lot of the game during the Caps game on Sunday. But the one thing I did see was that at some point the whole entire crowd erupted with Eagles suck chants because did that?
Well, that was yeah.
Because they showed the
Cowboys
score or
and Commanders fans were both chanting it together.
Friends, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. That was the best thing that happened in that game, apparently.
The funny one, too, with that is Carolina apparently asked for the Eagles' offensive coordinator
I saw that
as an interview request.
What are we
and I'm
doing here?
Have you been watching them? Just what about what's going on there is like, oh, I got to talk to that guy today. I have to.
I have the logic here. It's very easy. What has been the hot topic in the entire league before the playoffs started?
What?
Tush push.
Uh-huh.
That's Tepper.
That's what he wants?
Tepper's going.
He wants to perfect that?
Tepper's going.
I can tell him what to do about that. Go hire a Scottish rugby coach.
But I'm saying.
Actually, that'd be amazing.
That would be
We've
great.
hired a Scottish rugby coach to coach our football team.
Bryce Young gets lifted into the air.
Yeah.
Straight up in the air, rugby style.
Yeah. They don't wear helmets anymore. They just don't wear them. No pads, no helmets.
That's Tepper, though.
We'll show you how tough we are.
But isn't that pure old Dan Snyder and what Tepper would do?
I want this.
I want the guy that came up with the tush push.
Yeah. And that guy's like, he makes $48 an hour over there doing rugby, and they're going to pay him $23 million a year. He's like, I think I'll do it. His staff will be amazing. Nobody will understand a word they're saying. It'll be incredible.
It'll be more
Those
funny.
staff meetings are going to be incredible.
It'll be more funny because Bryce Young's like, you did what?
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Excuse
like,
me?
Oh,
You hired who?
who?
Why?
I can't understand my offensive coordinator. He's speaking in Scottish Gaelic. Like, the meal room has haggis, guys.
Where's McElhaney and the other guy that owned the soccer team?
Maybe Tepper will hire Ted Lasso. Maybe he'll do that.
Ryan Reynolds. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe he'll do that.
Get both of them
I don't
involved.
know. All right. Good luck with all that, guys. Let's see. Other things happening today. Aaron Rodgers' interviews are done.
Yep.
For, as they say, the football season.
Yeah, right.
Okay. That is predictable. This is, I am sure, after what happened 2 days or yesterday, I'm sure after that one, they went, ESPN said to him nicely, enough. So let me explain this relationship and why it's different than others. In the past, the ESPN people, the way this typically works is you sign a contract with them and then you're on their air until they decide otherwise.
Yeah.
And they may like you on their air, but if they don't like something you say on their air, they admonish you, chastise you, or in the case of like McAfee, like leak bad information about you to Andrew Marchand at the New York Post and allow them that to fester in and make life for you difficult. They hold the power over you. They hold the power over all of the talent. A few of them have some leverage like Stephen A. does now, but it takes a while to get that, and it's a very select few. Pat McAfee's situation is actually not this. It's actually quite wise what he did.
Yep.
They're paying him for the rights to air his show.
Yep.
He is the sole determinant
Correct.
of that show, and therefore they kind of don't have the same power over him.
Yep.
i.e., he did something, and again, I'm not going to get into this here because the people who are listening to this, you're not going to know what I'm talking about, and it's way too inside baseball. But he took a shot at a PR guy, Mike Foss, who's been there forever that I know, and Norby Williamson, who's been a string puller at ESPN as a very high executive for a very long time. You may have heard his name get brought out by McAfee by calling him a rat, earlier this week.
Correct.
That is a fireable offense for most people because Norby is Lord Farquaad, okay? So you can go Shrek all you want on him, but he's Lord Farquaad. And if he wants off with your head, it will be off with your head, all right?
My gumdrop buttons.
Yeah, he's kind of got that kind of role there. But McAfee isn't afraid of him.
Yeah.
Because his contract dictates he doesn't need to be afraid of him.
That's right.
So if they dump out of this deal with him, they have to give him the money.
That's right. Yeah. And then he gets to go sign somewhere
And
else.
he gets
too.
to go somewhere else. Therefore, they have to shut up, stop leaking things about him, and play nice. Okay? So just understand why McAfee is allowed to do what he's doing, because most of the other people who complain about management, which is Norby or others, but oftentimes is Norby, who is a string puller for the people who are on air, they typically, if you go a little too far and fire back at them, they typically evaporate you. They can't do that here in this case, not just because of his popularity, but because of his contract.
Part two of that, though, is if you do go ahead and do that, you lose McAfee on College Game Day. You lose the McAfee feed, which has been very popular. The three most viral moments on College Game Day this year was him baiting the Georgia fans and picking against them, right?
Correct.
Doing the I'm picking
That was
Alabama,
incredible. That
right?
was incredible.
It was the naysayer segment, which we didn't talk about, but he interrupts Reese Davis to say, Reese, you made me nervous there about the whole, let a naysayer know, that situation.
Yeah.
And then in that same broadcast, the stealth bomber flew over, and they all freaked out because the stealth bomber was over the stadium. The 3 most viral moments involve him. So if you screw up that relationship and you lose him there, College Game Day hits the reset button again, too.
So he will go to Fox for the college stuff tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
He will do his own show on his own.
Yep.
It's not lost any real popularity. If nothing, it just gained a bunch of people who didn't know who he was that aren't internet savvy, an older crowd that watches linear ESPN and now at least knows who he is.
Correct.
Whether they're interested in him or not, his fan base won't go anywhere. This is like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan could go to a platform, put his show on that platform, probably grow a massive audience, and then piss off the platform because they don't like, that he's just asking questions of crazy people and letting them talk. And then they go, we can't have this on our air. And then he just goes back to where he was and makes the same amount of money.
Go ask Howard Stern.
Correct.
Howard Stern, there's a reason why he's not left XM, because they know every single person's going to hop ship wherever he goes.
Correct.
They're dead.
They're dead.
They're going to go bankrupt.
He has them. Like ESPN is not dead if Pat McAfee leaves.
Sure.
It doesn't change anything.
But you're still going
in the
up
same way
against
that, no offense, Stephen A., if you're gone, they'll replace you.
Right.
Now, it may take a while to find somebody as popular as him, but they'll replace him.
But both cases, that audience jumped ship with them. They'll find out where they go.
I think so, but Skip tried that, and that didn't really happen.
Nobody really liked Skip that much.
He was very popular.
Nobody
at ESPN.
liked him that much, though.
That's
I'm
true.
saying, he was the foil to Stephen A. He was not the star of the show.
Sure. Okay. So then came the Rodgers interview yesterday. And now this is where ESPN has to say something, because Aaron Rodgers went after Jimmy Kimmel, insinuated he's a pedophile, even though he tried to walk that back, and nobody believes him because it was just if it is just a joke, it's a terribly stupid one.
Yes.
You don't understand comedic, what is fair game in comedy. You can't just call somebody a
Especially
pedophile.
in today's climate of who then starts coming after you thinking that's true.
Correct. It's bad.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of trying to walk that back, but not apologizing, but admitting that he has no proof that Jimmy Kimmel's a pedophile, he then went into his, ideas on the world for 30 minutes.
Yep.
I didn't watch all of it, but apparently it went on this long, where he talked about Fauci again, and he talked about vaccinations.
And
lockdowns. And the laughable one that continues to come up, cancel culture, of which he doesn't understand what it is. Mm-hmm. Because being canceled is not being paid to be on ESPN. In fact, it's the opposite of it. You don't understand what cancel culture is, telling people about cancel culture on ESPN, saying you've been canceled.
Yeah.
Now, as of today, as for this interview, it has been canceled. But guess what? Aaron Rodgers can go on just about any platform anywhere and talk about all of these things, and it would be welcome to do so, and therefore, he has not been canceled.
Yeah, right.
Nobody can really be canceled. Right. So this is the dumb part. When these people talk about this, it's so harebrained and small-minded. It's like, you're saying you're being canceled in front of millions of people on the biggest platform in sports that you're invited to every week, that you're paid to be on, and you're telling me you're being canceled? You clearly don't even know what that means.
Correct. Exactly.
It's so stupid.
Well, it's the same people that think that
I can't deal with the stupidity. That's what got me during this whole era is the level of stupidity that people buy into. I can't handle it.
On the same level, it's the same people that say, oh, why are you so woke? And it's like, no, woke is actually a thing. You've just misconstrued the definition.
Do you know what that is?
Right.
It's like, what's his name? He said, Nick Wright brought this up the other day. He goes, in that interview last week, he brought up Alphabet Mafia, and he goes, he was talking about Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, but that's not actually what it is.
Right.
And he goes, and that's what's dangerous about this guy. He's platforming things that he doesn't even know what he's saying.
Right.
That are these horrible, divisive things.
Yes, exactly.
So ESPN quietly announced today, Aaron Rodgers, actually McAfee did it on his show.
Yeah, because McAfee does have the final creative decision.
Correct, but I'm going to go with on this one. They probably asked nicely, no more this year.
Right.
We can revisit this in the summer when the Jets go to training camp. I have a feeling ESPN is going to hopefully get him to agree to not put him on again, but it will be up to McAfee because, as described earlier, this relationship is different than the ones that are in the past. Stephen A. Smith can't have any guest he wants on his show, even though he may tell you that's the case, because he's a direct contract employee of ESPN. First Take is not his show. It's ESPN's. The Pat McAfee show is Pat McAfee's show that is rented by ESPN.
Yep.
This was the one, and maybe this is the only way they can get him. And also, I will give him a lot of credit for wisely doing it this way. He didn't just become an employee of theirs, and therefore he can take shots back at him when they probably predictably objected to some of the things that happened on his show.
Two-parter here as well. I'm sure he also was probably getting pushback from his own audience after yesterday.
So I've seen a lot of articles about that. And I think that's some of it too. He's listening to his own fans because there were all these message boards that were like, enough already.
Right.
Like, we're talking about Fauci again?
Well, it's like, yeah.
Really? What year is this?
And it's also 10 minutes of it, fine. 30, that's a quarter of your show. You know, like, what are we doing here? Two-parter here.
Aaron, do your podcast.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you could.
Go ahead.
Where's Blue of Earth when we need her?
Go on YouTube. You could start your own show.
That's correct. Yeah.
People will watch it.
It's absolutely
He
right.
is getting an army of trolls.
Right.
It's really, that's why he's dangerous. He hasn't done it on his own yet, and he would probably be surprised at how small-ish the audience is compared to what he probably thinks it would be. But it would be sizable. It wouldn't be small. They would at least listen to what he has to say.
The other half of this, too, is McAfee is a huge wrestling guy, like has worked with WWE, knows how some of this promotion stuff works. Here's what's really happening as well. He's taking Rodgers away to bring him back eventually. He's going to let all of this cool down. And as I said yesterday, you said training camp, but I'm even going to go probably regular season. We're going to hear it like week 1 or maybe week 0, like the week before the season starts. And McAfee's going to go, guys, he's coming back. And it's going to be this huge promotional tool. And that's exactly what happens in wrestling. Guys go away for a while, and then it happens with a surprise comeback. Rodgers is going to be just that for him. And maybe they started off with a smaller amount of appearances. Maybe it's a once-a-month thing that they guarantee. Or they say he's going to come in halfway through the year, something like that. He's going to return to the show, though. He's not going to be gone forever.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's coming back. Here's
what I think.
He's not gone.
I think ESPN's going to ask him not to bring him back. And McAfee's going to make a choice because he can choose to do so.
If the Jets are 6-2, 8 games in, ESPN's probably going to go take the risk, have him on, because he's going to be on something. So you might as well go on there.
He's not. He also, again, and now he's paid to just show up and do an interview.
Yeah.
He is not beholden to literally anybody to say whatever he wants. He's not going to take the blue pill anytime soon and, change his thought processes. So he's not going to change his ways.
Yeah.
Like, if you think he's going to come on and just play nice and talk football, I don't think you're paying attention. So the risk is you bring him on and he will say divisive things. Those divisive things led to, and this unfiltered interview with him weekly is really what led to the overall popularity of the Pat McAfee show in the first place.
So after
he had
November
a big
1st.
audience. He had a big Yeah, you can't do a pre-election one with him.
Yeah, I agree. So it's going to be in November. I guarantee you. It's going to be halfway through the year.
Listen, McAfee's got to make his own choice here. And I think he probably will ask his audience if they want him back. And I bet he'll listen to him. I bet he'll ask, do you want him back? I mean, this is wrestling.
Yeah.
Do you like this guy? Like, they listen to their fans.
It's a surprise comeback. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
with this.
right. But they're like, the wrestling, like, that's part of the magic is they ask their fans, do you like this person?
Right.
It's a straw poll. And if they don't like that character, that person evaporates and disappears.
Well, no, you use that to your advantage. That's what happens now.
You bring him back at a later date.
Well, that guy's a bad guy now. Like,
okay,
that's
but
what
then
happens.
you flip them, and then if that doesn't take, then they evaporate.
Then he's out. He or she is out. Yes,
right, but
correct.
they listen to their fans. Like, they don't force somebody down your throat. They give you somebody. They make you decide whether you like them or not. The fans
company.
tell you.
I'm just here to correct you. Vince does what Vince does.
I think they know what they're doing.
Everyone hated Roman Reigns for a long time. And now Roman Reigns is the biggest wrestler in the world because Vince forced him down everyone's throat for 10 years. So I'm just saying.
I can't project this at this point. I do think that this interview ended because yesterday was a car wreck. Yeah. I think even McAfee has to know that. He's in this for clicks and views and nothing more. I think he's a rational person, but he also understands what ratings are and knows that this is ratings. Yeah. So he was all for platforming him because it got him these ratings. And yesterday it just hit a point where Rodgers couldn't even apologize for insinuating someone's a pedophile and then spent 30 minutes of a sports show talking about Anthony Fauci.
Right.
I saw Jamel Hill went on like CNN because, she's loving all this. And she's like, I thought I was watching Newsmax, which I thought was a pretty good line.
Which is funny from her because she was like, all I did was weigh in on the president, and I was fired right away.
Yeah. Bye. Like, that was right. I said one thing about him that was true.
Yeah.
And
this guy's going on and on about things that aren't true.
Yeah. This guy, he could say anything.
Right.
Let's see. The Broncos apparently are open to Russ coming back next year as their quarterback.
Stop.
That's not true.
That's not happening.
How's that true?
Yeah, at a reduced rate, I bet.
Let's see. Sean Payton said that he met with Wilson for 30 minutes on Monday, and a scenario where Wilson would return was among the topics discussed. But also that any decision would be made in a, quote, timely fashion.
Yes.
As Sean Payton said, I told him, look, I don't think it's going to be a long, drawn-out process, but it hasn't been decided relative to what our plans are. As soon as we know something certainly, then he would be the first to know. Meaning, are we acquiring a different quarterback that we like? And if we do, we will, I think, cut him. I don't know how in the world they're going to trade him. And they're going to have to structure it so that it happens the post-June 1 thing because their cap can't handle because it's too soon in this contract to do it right now. I guess he's leaving open the possibility that they're not going to get a single person that they like better, which, considering how this played out, I don't know how is the case.
Right.
There's got to be another quarterback on the planet they like better than him, considering the way they treated him here by the end.
Right. Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's a come back at a really cheap rate. That's the only way I see that happening.
Let's see. He said, we're going to look at all scenarios and try to do what's best for the Broncos, but communication will be important. And we said that final decision hasn't been made as to whether he should stay or go. Let's see. Their GM was asked to address the whole thing that Russ confirmed that they went up to him and said, change your contract or we're going to bench you.
Right.
And he said this, during the bye week, I did reach out to Russ's agent in a good faith and creative attempt to adjust his contract. We couldn't get a deal done, and we moved on with our season. It didn't come up again. Fast forward to week 17, Sean makes a change at the quarterback position. It was a football decision made by Sean. Sure. What he thought was in the best interest of the team. This was completely independent of any conversations I had with the agent. It was a football decision. We made a good faith attempt to adjust his contract, and we handled ourselves professionally. And they're worried, and they're saying this because they're concerned they're going to get fined by the NFL for threatening something you're not allowed to threaten.
That's right, yeah.
You can't say change your contract or we won't play you. You actually can't do that.
Right.
You can say you suck and we're not going to play you.
Right. Exactly.
If you break some kind of conduct code, we can bench you and not play you. If you're hurt, we don't have to play you. Even if it's not one that you think is serious enough, we can make the determination that we don't think you're apt to play, so we don't have to let you play. But you can't say, give us money back or we bench you. You're not allowed to do that. Here's the CEO of the team asked, how do you do business these days? Mm-hmm. As CEO, I definitely want to be briefed about what's going on, but at the same time, I entrust people to do their jobs. I don't coach the football team. I don't call the agents that have negotiations. I believe the approach to Russell's agent was done in a constructive way, and it didn't lead to an agreement. So he's saying I had nothing to do with it. I let our general manager deal with this part of his contract, and I let our coach bench him because he thought he stunk. But I had nothing to do with the franchise quarterback we signed here and what the future in the present and distant future may be for him.
This is all them saying they didn't do it, so nobody gets pinned for it. That's all that is. Even if he did have something to do with it. Why would he tell the truth?
Cowards.
Right.
Just like, what? I get why you're saying it. No one believes you.
Correct. Yeah, but they have to say it. They have to say it because then they get to point to it. No, look, we might bring him back.
Because the union and the league said, fix this.
Yeah, right.
It sounds like you strong-armed the guy to give you money so you could cut him next year. He chose not to do that, and you embarrassed him.
Right.
Isn't that what you did?
Right.
And all of them go, I don't know anything about that.
Right.